Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Howard, and I'm here to talk with you about childhood obesity. Why is this a problem? Well, our society is now normalized being overweight, and it is perpetuating childhood obesity into adulthood. The CDC National Center for Health Statistics estimates that 17% of people in 2009 2010 were obese. Now let's compare this with 1971 to 1974. 5.1% of the population back then was obese. This is over a threefold change. Now, why is this important? Well, childhood obesity can lead to a lower life expectancy. Also, childhood obesity is associated with more chronic disease later in life. Around the world, over 40 million children under the age of 5 are considered obese, according to the World Health Organization. And according to Harvard's public health school, this is a 60% increase from 1990. Now, obesity is extremely preventable. Individuals and societies have to commit to lifestyle changes as well as environmental change in order to sustain long-term effects. Some cases are special because it's not always up to the individual whether or not they can control their environment. So we have to, again, address larger structural factors. In terms of prevention, we can change action and we can change the culture by making overweight out of style. We have to change behaviors, and one of the most important behaviors we have to address is sedentary behavior. We combat this with physical activity, but not just working out. You also have to be active throughout the day. The evidence base for prevention is shared with us through upstream and downstream approaches. So for upstream, we'll focus on the public health aspect. The Community Preventive Task Force recommends reduced screen time, increased physical activity, and better design of communities to get people moving. On the downstream approach, the more clinical view of this is from the United States Preventive Service Task Force, which actually calls obesity a disease. They recommend screenings for overweight and obesity in kids over the age of 6. And personally, I think that in addition to these screenings, we have to be direct with the patients and with the parents about what the results mean. We also have to ask parents what they need and what are the challenges that they face with keeping their children at a healthy weight. Now, the specific policy approach that I want to use is actually something that has been pretty popular over the past 10 years or so. So that's obviously an increase in physical activity, but more specifically, we can expand Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. We want to focus this on schools, and we can also include changes to schools such as allowing kids to choose what activities they participate in PE that will make them more likely to engage. We also need to mandate PE classes and actually have a space for kids to go play and be active, whether that's recess or physical education. We need an outlet for kids to be active. Another important thing to provide would be, standing desks. If that's not feasible for a school, maybe having breaks every 20 minutes so that the kids can stand up and walk around in order to maintain circulation and become focused again. I also think it's important to integrate PE and health classes because you need to know why you're doing what you're doing in the PE class, and the health class can tell you that. Now, overall, it's just very important to show the urgency of this matter because it is not something that happens overnight, but it is affecting us today. In order to evaluate the effectiveness of this policy, I would definitely want to consider cost and time because it's going to take money and time to change the school's curriculum. We'll also have to ask, do schools actually have PE programs? Do they have recess in place? And does the community see it as a problem? Because if not, we're not going to get anywhere. And additionally, we have to ask ourselves if we're ready to change the culture. Are we ready for the shift away from sedentary behavior and to stop changing our surroundings to account for being overweight? In order to evaluate the success of this approach, I would like to see decreased childhood obesity rates as well as lessened screen time, more outside time. And also, we want to see kids being mentally and physically more healthy. A way we can measure this is through self esteem surveys and also physical fitness tests in gym class that measure cardiovascular health as well as strength standards. Now, some people might have some arguments against this, of course, but overall, it's going to be a good thing. Some things people might think are it's too expensive to change. Well, the healthcare costs of sick and obese people are actually going to outweigh the cost that it will be to implement these changes. And some people might say, well, that's too much effort or too much work to change courses. We're not going to put that on teachers. Well, teachers often actually ask for feedback and how they can improve their courses. So I think this would be a great way to help improve, learning for kids. They can be more focused in class. Some people might think, well, it's okay for kids to be a little chubby or to have that baby weight. But I mean, at a certain point, it stops being baby weight. Um, we have to see the difference between baby weight and obesity, hence the screenings for children over 6. Many people might not want to force gym class participation, but in a way, we're forcing sedentary behavior with the use of prolonged sitting in schools. So we need to offer an alternative like standing desks and recess. And finally, some people might think this is way too big of a problem. Where do we start? Well, we start with kids. We start with schools. We start at the beginning. We have to break this down to smaller pieces. Otherwise, you're right, it will never get accomplished. So that's why I want to focus on schools with kids. Some potential undesirable effects might be exposing self esteem issues in children if not approached in the right way. So it's important that we make children feel comfortable and we explain why, physical activity is good for you. It can also help increase their mental health. So this might be solved in and of itself. Um, Also, body image. We kind of have a body image obsessed culture already. So I don't think that having this intervention would make that worse. I think it would actually change the way we look at our body image. It would be a healthier view. We have to refocus the message to be on the inside out rather than the outside in. Some people might be worried about injuries from physical activity, but proper training, good technique, and not pushing students too hard can definitely make this a non threat. Finally, we want to involve teachers, community leaders, and pediatricians because we want to learn how kids can be active in the classroom, data on obesity rates, and struggles and successes of keeping kids healthy. In conclusion, this will require a huge cultural shift, behavior, and structural change, but we have to start with kids and families, and eventually we can get the whole world on track. Thank you.